Welcome to 5 Questions with LeRoy Butler. We're here in episode week 3.
Yeah, it's moving.
Packers are 1-1 and coming off a pretty decisive victory over Washington.
Is Washington bad or is Green Bay improved?
That's exactly what I was just going to ask you. Now they had a first game. They played pretty well against San Francisco, all things considered.
Yeah.
Then they come in and they play either really, really well or a really, really bad team. Which was it?
I think it's a combination of both. If you go back and look at the game in Philadelphia against Washington, Michael Vick and Shady McCoy, I mean, he had 184 yards rushing, and Michael Vick had some gaudy numbers. So you never think about giving up 1,000 yards in two games. But Washington does have young guys in the secondary, and so that can make. Every time Aaron Rodgers saw one safety high, he'll look for the matchup. James Jones at a coming out party. That was awesome. But it doesn't really matter. It seemed like Aaron Rodgers was on point. And I think when that offense is on point like that, it makes the offense flow better, especially when James Starks is at running back. And I know a lot of people, Tom, want Lacy to be a 3-down back and they want him to take the load, but this could be a result of his injury history. But not only that, he took a vicious hit. So to have a guy that you can go in there with Starks who has Super Bowl experience is very, very helpful.
Yeah. Well, first let's look at Rodgers and the game that he had. Even if it was against a bunch of guys from Ashwaubenon High School, it was still a pretty
he didn't pick the schedule.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive performance. He took advantage of what was given to him.
As he should.
Right?
Yep.
And so what part of his game, particularly impressed you in this game?
I think if you look at quarterbacks nowadays, and this is a quarterback-driven league, you think about decision-making and pulling the trigger. And he's the best at that right now. His mechanics are very good. Obviously, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers had two of the best mechanics. But back to Rodgers, his progression is good, Tom. He'll look 1, 2, 3, come back to 1. He'll look at 3, 2, 1, come back to 3. You got to do all that in a short amount of time. Not to mention he got sacked 4 times.
Yeah.
So I think everything that he gives you, you don't necessarily need a number 1 receiver. You didn't necessarily miss Greg Jennings yesterday. I don't think people looked at that offense and say, where's Greg Jennings? Although I do want to know what Greg Jennings' sister is saying right about now, since she said Aaron was overrated. So,
Well, we'll see. What I'm interested to see is when they face a team that can get up in their face and, really jam on their receivers and try to take those guys out of the game.
Yeah,
right. But we'll see on that.
Yeah,
so you mentioned Starks and Lacy. Now, Lacy's out. Maybe he'll be back. Maybe he won't be back this week. Let's just say that for argument's sake, he is back this week.
Right.
How do you balance what Starks did versus what he's done?
Well, I don't think anybody should lose their job on an injury. That's just what the veterans think. But history has proven that coaches make a decision on the hot guy. Go all the way back to New England. They had, Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe. They chose to ride with Brady. So history has shown coaches ride the hot guy. But again, if Lacy's going to be your future, you got to give him an opportunity to come back. But when you're a running back in this league and the concussions are such a big deal, I think it may serve him well to sit one more week out and let Starks play against Cincinnati and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, well, the NFL has such a strict and guideline now for concussions.
Yes.
If he's ready to go, he'll be ready to go.
Oh,
if he's not, he's not. So I guess it's all up to that. But Starks is a guy who's been just forgotten, and you got to remember that guy's got a ton of talent.
Yes.
I've been kind of on his bandwagon since the start of camp. I thought he had the best camp of any running back.
I echo those same sentiments. But again, Lacy is the one guy, Tom, that all Packer Nation wanted, and even Mike McCarthy said they wanted him to be a 3-down back because Franklin has been somewhat of a disappointment. So they wanted that to be DeJuan Harris and Lacy to be the 1-2 punch. Right. I thought Starks was going to get traded or cut.
Yeah, it looked that way.
Yeah, and then the next thing you know, I've been telling people if Starks is healthy, he's going to get a better opportunity. Offense is faster with him in there.
Yeah.
They move the ball quicker, but, you know, we have to see how it plays out.
Okay. Another guy who has been pretty impressive the first 2 weeks is Jermichael Finley.
Yeah.
I'm
not surprised by that.
You're not surprised at that?
No, because his training camp, Tom, was very good. He may have one of the top 2 training camps. And people say, well, he's playing for a contract. We always play for contracts.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, he gives you a dynamic weapon in the intermediate perimeter areas that could be voided if he's not in his offense.
Yeah.
He's just playing very well.
And I don't think it's that he's playing harder. I think he worked on his body to get
he looks very
stronger,
good. Yep.
and he's breaking tackles. He
Yes.
used to just go down, you know, fairly easily, and that's due to off-season work, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think, you know, I don't think anybody works any harder. I mean, the guy broke 4 or 5 tackles right in front of McCarthy, and McCarthy got excited. And people say, why did you keep this guy? That's why.
Yeah.
Even on his touchdown, I saw chemistry. Remember a couple of years ago, people thought him and Aaron didn't have the chemistry.
They didn't.
You know,
They didn't.
and for good reason.
Yeah.
But on his touchdown, he reverse spinned out, and the ball was on the way.
Right.
That's chemistry.
And he threw it high, too.
And he threw it high so
Only
he can
Finley
go
could
up.
get it.
Right. And we're going to talk about the X's and O's where the chemistry with 87 bode well for the Packers. So as long as he has great chemistry with 87, 89, and 88, that offense is going to score a lot of points.
Yeah. Packers have a challenge this week, going to Cincinnati. Yeah. Cincinnati beat up on Pittsburgh pretty good. Yeah. Again, hard to tell. Are they that good, or is Pittsburgh that bad? You know, but we do know one guy who's really good, and that's A.J. Green, their star wide receiver. I mean, every clip we looked at, the guy was just making phenomenal catches. And how are they going to cover that guy?
Well, he runs the best routes in the league. He runs the best isolated routes. In other words, when double coverage is coming his way, he think he can beat it. Other than Calvin Johnson, this is the most dynamic receiver we've seen in the last 5 years. Not numbers-wise, just straight talent. The Packers are going to have to roll 38, Tramon Williams, and have a safety over the top at all times. Every time they see a one safety high, Dalton is just going to throw it deep. He's 6'5", runs a 4.3.
Yeah.
It can be a problem.
Tremendous hands.
But the thing that scares me is the 2 tight ends. The 2 tight ends in this offense give Cincinnati something they hadn't had in a while, Tom. And we'll talk a little bit about that in X and O's as well. So I think with Green, if you look at the history of the Packers, it just seems like every number 1 receiver, Tom, has a big day.
Yeah.
Anquan Bolden, Pierre Gonson.
So Reggie Wayne, Brandon Marshall had
over and over. I mean, the number 1 receiver has a big day, Calvin Johnson. So hopefully the Packers can have a recipe for that.
Last thing, what do you take of the fourth quarter? They played reasonably good defense for 3 quarters. I mean, really good defense in the first half. Third quarter was okay. Fourth quarter was terrible. What do you make out of that?
It's just garbage time.
Okay.
I mean,
you believe that?
I really do. I mean, because they went 4 of those completions were at Sam Shields, and it just seemed like, let's just get the game over. You're up 31-7 at times. Yeah. I've been there before at times. So I'm talking from experience. It's just human nature. The adrenaline is not there anymore. You just want to just get out of the game. Okay. But you could take the Woodson approach, jump all the passes and try to get an interception.
So build up your stats.
Right. So that makes you be aggressive, though. So I didn't hold that against these guys, because it's just garbage time.
Okay.
Well, but normally, real quick, you lose games, Tom, when you get a 300-yard passer, 100-yard rusher, and a 100-yard receiver. Normally, you lose those games.
Except if your own guy has 480 yards and then has 132 yards.
Right. And I think that's the first time in Packer history you had a 400-yard pass, 100-yard rusher.
It was. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us, and don't forget to go to X's and O's. We're going to break down Jordy Nelson's touchdown and also look at a secret weapon that Cincinnati's going to definitely place against the Packers.
And you can go to LeRoy Butler, INC.com for all information about my anti-bullying program. And again, thanks to the Salvation Army and Syndic's Ballester, owned and operated, and Classic Lanes in Greenfield.
Thanks. See you next week.